Hello, listener, and welcome to Chapter 7 of Bite-Sized Tales, the audio flash fiction podcast. What could be worse than experiencing the end of the world? How about experiencing it multiple times? So sit back, listener, and ask yourself, what would you do if you knew the world was going to end today? A Fine Morning for an Apocalypse, written and read by Wayne Cole. It was a fine morning for an apocalypse, bright and sunny with birds chirping. You might think an apocalypse is more fitting on a stormy day, but that just adds one more horrible thing to the day. It is much better to have one last enjoyable day to remember before the apocalypse starts. The best day is the kind that makes you want to be outside and enjoying the world. A day just like today. I have lived through 12 different apocalypses at this point, and only 2 of them have had mornings like this one. 5 of them were on dark and stormy evenings. 2 of them came during blizzards, and if there's one thing that makes me want to stay inside in comfort, it's extreme cold weather. 2 of them were on excessively foggy mornings where you couldn't see more than 10 feet in front of you. Actually, now that I think about it, that isn't so bad, because you don't really want to see the horrors that come with an apocalypse. Then there was the apocalypse that started with flaming chunks of rock falling from the sky. I'm not sure if there is a weather term for that, and personally, I hope I never find out. Each time I live through the fallout for about a month, and then I wake up in a new reality with yet another set of new, lifelong memories smashed into my head, blending with all of my own. I could feel that it was time for it to happen again, so I called in sick to work and headed out to enjoy my day. First, I hit the breakfast barn, because out of 13 worlds I've lived in, this is the only one that chain exists in. I was immediately saddened at the thought that I might never have their biscuits and gravy again. After breakfast, I went to an early movie. If there's one thing that annoys me more than anything else about alternate realities, it's that they never seem to finish my favorite movie series before the world ends. As I stepped back outside, I could feel that it was almost time. I don't know how I can tell, but I always just seem to know. I rushed to my favorite deli and just hoped that I'd be able to finish lunch before whatever was about to happen began. Sitting at an outdoor table, I enjoyed my sandwich, knowing I probably wouldn't be eating well for the next month. The sounds of sirens started slowly, but soon police and ambulances were rushing by every few moments. I didn't know what was going to happen, but it was obvious that it was starting. Where you are when an apocalypse starts really seems to be one of the biggest factors in survival. I was eating 2 blocks from my apartment, and at this point I always keep supplies both in my apartment and in my car. I don't know what would happen if I died before waking up in the new reality, and I wasn't anxious to find out. I paid my bill and tipped the nice young man all the cash I had left. He did a decent job, and I wanted him to have one last happy moment before his world came crashing down. For his sake, I hoped he would have a quick end. I sprinted down the road to my apartment. There, on my front steps, a homeless man was eating my neighbor's intestines. Zombies. Well, that's a new one. I didn't think before blurting it out in shock. The zombie turned at the sound and rushed towards me. You don't live through 12 apocalypses without learning how to fight, but this was different. I was able to sidestep him, but my jab to his side didn't seem to have any effect at all. He just spun and growled at me. In a split-second decision, I bolted to my front door and barely managed to slip inside. My apartment had weapons, so if I could get to them, I would be much better off. That was when I noticed that the halls were filled with my now zombie neighbors. All of my planning was falling apart right in front of me because I spent too much time trying to create positive memories. "Hey you, down here," My downstairs neighbor was holding open the basement door and motioning to me. I had never taken the time to learn her name, but seeing her there wearing a backpack and holding a baseball bat, I was starting to regret not knowing anything about her. I sprinted towards the door with at least 5 more neighbors I never bothered to learn the names of, while they were alive at least, chasing me. Somehow, I never thought that my life would be in danger from someone wearing a "Clowns are people too" t-shirt. As I slipped through the door, she slammed it behind me. "That won't hold them for long." She pointed to a duffel bag. "Grab anything down here that we can use for supplies, but it needs to fit through the window. We're heading to your car, so I hope you have somewhere to go." I started sorting through all the storage, but there really wasn't much that would be useful. Mostly people just stored their extra junk, but thankfully I had some non-perishable food and bottled water in a trunk. The second key to surviving Apacolypse is having supplies everywhere, because even if you're in a good place when it starts, you never know where you might end up. I like to be prepared for anything, but zombies weren't exactly on my radar. I have a cabin in the hills that should work, though. "Good, that'll last us a while. I assume you have it as well stocked as your car?" "Wait, how do you know my car has supplies?" "I watched you load it from my window. This won't make any sense, but this isn't my first apocalypse. And after a few, you start to learn who else is prepared." She looked up at the basement door as it started to crack. "I hate zombies. They're one of the hardest apocalypse types to survive. Try out-of-control carnivorous fungus. It ate all my supplies." We locked eyes, and I stared at her, and realizing for the first time in my life, I had found someone like myself. The moment was soon interrupted by the sound of the door giving way. "Window, now!" She hopped up on the table that she'd pulled against the wall and shimmied through the small opening. I followed her as the zombies rushed down the stairs. One of them grabbed my leg as I struggled to fit through. I was not as small as she was, and was finding it far more difficult. I kicked back, driving my foot into its face. The thing went tumbling off the table onto the floor. Pulling myself the rest of the way through the window, I rushed to my car, hitting my key fob to unlock the door. That was 3 hours ago, and we're almost to my cabin. I have so many questions. How many times has it happened to you? Have we ever been in the same world together before? Do you have any idea why this is happening? One question, though, dominates all of the others. After all this time, now that I finally have someone like myself, how do I tell you that the zombie in the basement bit my leg as I tried to climb out? How do I tell you that I'm starting to get very hungry? And now a word from our author. This story was inspired by a writing prompt about the apocalypse. Also, it was inspired by the TV show Sliders that I was a big fan of as a child. I like this idea of going from world to world, but I also like the idea of waking up in another alternate version of yourself and experiencing this new world. When the prompt came up for an apocalypse story, the two just kind of clicked in my head, and I started to wonder what would it be like to experience them over and over again. How would that change your views? This chapter of Bite-Sized Tales has been brought to you under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Intro and outro music is Fantasy Motion by Alexander Nakarada, provided under a Creative Commons 4.0 license. If you've enjoyed what you heard today, we would greatly appreciate reviews and recommendations to your friends. Finally, for more information about our authors, visit bitesizedtales.com. We can't wait to read to you again next time.